Ladies and gentlemen, the show we've all been waiting for, Paranormal Buzz Radio is proud to present REP Paranormal and Friends with your hosts, Kim Purvis and Allison Robinson. Live every Thursday night on Spreaker, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. Be sure to check out their Facebook page, REP Paranormal Busters.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to another night of REP Paranormal and Friends. Tonight we have a special guest. He's an author of A Moment Called Man and The Skin That Crawls, and also a demonologist. So welcome Nathaniel Gillis to the show. Thank you for being on tonight. That's okay. Dark and creepy. We like that kind of stuff. So I am super interested in all this. So, what age were you when you had your first paranormal encounter? Okay. Just 1 second here. Our sound is disabled for some reason. It was very weird. I don't know what happened, but we're gonna we're gonna get it back on here. Oh.
It's normal for us.
Oh no. Yeah, no, okay. Go ahead and say something. I want to see if it comes up here. No. Oh. Try. Okay. Go ahead. Try it again.
And yeah, I lived with that entity for like 6 years. It was traumatizing. It was horrific. I could hear it walk on the wooden floors at nighttime where it would creak.
Yes.
It was really bad. So, it left an impression on me. And the older I got, the more I wanted to understand what I experienced and really research this field.
Very nice. That's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you what got you into the paranormal and what got you into demonology?
Well, I grew up in an evangelical church. And at the same time, like I was living in that house at the same time. And so whenever I would experience something paranormal, I would go to my teacher, my Sunday school teacher, my youth pastor, and I would ask them, hey, listen, what is this? What would you consider this entity to be? And I realized that their version of demonology was a little bit too small for what I was experiencing. And so I got really interested in it. What's their pathology? What kind of entities are they? Do they have are they disincarnate spirits? Are they disembodied people? And so that's really what I started researching. And since then, my research has led me into comparing the modern UFO abduction phenomenon with ancient demonology of the Middle East. And so, it's my research is expansive, but that's really my primary focus right now.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask that also. How do demons and aliens coincide? Are they one and the same, or how are they connected?
Well, they're connected through what's called I don't know if I could say this because I do a lot of shows. Sometimes I can't.
You can
But they
say
have
whatever you need to on this show.
okay, so so when I first started researching their sexual pathologies throughout history, these entities that would manifest to people at nighttime, groom them into intercourse, and either extract the seed from the man or inseminate the woman, these entities are doing the same thing. And so in demonology, we would call them incubi and succubi.
Hmm.
And so as my research started, I started talking to different women throughout the world about what they were experiencing. Literally, women were going to bed at nighttime. They think they're, with their husband.
Hmm.
And after all is said and done, it's not their husband. Their husband's been laying next to them. And then the entity leaves. And, what's really going on? And so my research now is centered around that interconnectivity and how our ancestors interpreted this phenomenon as demonic. They didn't understand it no more than we do. But I think that's just one of the ways that they mirror each other, because there's a lot of abductions
Hmm.
where people are groomed into intercourse and inseminated in the process. So I think that's a huge link between both phenomena.
Okay, yes, this is something very new to me. I have never heard of this before at all.
Oh, it's
So,
scary. It
yeah.
is scary. I mean, we're literally talking about spirits that will take the image
Uh-huh.
of a lover
Right.
and then try to harvest either semen from the man
Hmm.
or use the harvested semen to inseminate the woman. It was so prevalent, like back in the 15th, 16th centuries. We had one guy named Father Sinistrario of Amino.
Uh-huh.
He was a Franciscan priest, and he was going into homes within an hour of these entities being there, and he was collecting semen samples. And so it was him, along with other demonologists, that believed these entities were milking the carcasses of the dead,
Oh my gosh.
and then trying to create a hybrid species. It's the same stuff. I mean, we heard it with the Betty and Barney Hill case,
Hmm.
and so that's really where my work is centered right now.
Okay. All right. So are there like these little hybrids like walking
Hmm.
around now?
We don't. Well, I would think that this gets really weird. There's a lady up there named Ruth Montgomery, and in the field of research, she was the progenitor of what's called the walk-in theory, where these entities will pull the consciousness out of the body and then replace it with their own, to where it's our bodies, but it's their consciousness. So I do believe that's the case, and I believe that's part of what's called the hybridization program that people like David Jacobs and other ufologists refer to.
Hmm.
But there is evidence that they are harvesting and hatching consciousness.
Hmm.
We have a case study with Dr. Carla Turner
Uh-huh.
where a female abductee was abducted. She had intercourse with one of these entities on a ship,
Hmm.
and then she becomes pregnant with this hybrid baby. She looks at her husband and says that this is not a viable fetus, that this baby will not survive full-term pregnancy, and it didn't.
Oh wow.
And then she's abducted again, and they had taken the consciousness of that child and placed it into a hybrid body and gave that baby back to her. And so here she is in a puddle of tears talking to Dr. Carla Turner, freaking out, saying, I don't understand, but the consciousness of the baby I lost was in that hybrid body.
Wow. Hmm.
It's dark. A lot of this stuff
It
is dark.
it is. That is just it takes a new turn on things. I've heard people talking about aliens and abductions
Hmm.
and everything that like that, but you've never heard of you've heard of them like doing things to people, but
Hmm.
not like trying to impregnate them or things of
Oh,
that
yeah.
nature.
Oh, yeah. I was working with a young lady in India.
Uh-huh.
She reached out to me and emailed me one day. So I got her on the phone and we started talking. And whenever you're dealing with the subject, you have to treat it like in a very clinical manner.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's just kind of very cut and dry. And because a
Mhm.
lot of this stuff gets really weird quick. And she said that she had an entity that was manifesting to her in the image of her former lovers. So much so that it knew which lover she was with that did not wear protection.
Oh wow.
And the reason it was doing that is because it was looking to inseminate her and to impregnate her. And I have evidence that phenomenon, the incubi phenomenon, goes all the way back to the late Iron Age. But I mean, we're dealing with the species, either demonic or extraterrestrial, whatever we want to call it, doesn't matter to me, that is highly, highly, highly evolved,
Mhm.
and they're deceivers.
Right. Now, what kind of technology are they using? Any kind of advanced technology to us, or anything like that? Like,
I think so. We have evidence from abductees that are saying that that like their soul. This is crazy too. That it's not just a bodily abduction, but that they feel like their soul is being sucked out of their body by an intelligent electricity. And so what I'm doing now, my research is I'm starting to realize that a lot of these abductions and a lot of these what we would call demonic encounters throughout history, it happened in a soulless dimension. It did not happen in the body. And so we have cases where people are pulled out of themselves and they're able to look down at their body as they're leaving. So, and so whenever I do a lecture, I tell people if we've ever seen a threat in our entire existence as a species, it's the entity that could peel our souls out of us.
I used to be all about aliens, but now I'm like,
no. Oh my God. We have one case that's out of the book Beyond UFOs. And was a gentleman, is actually a young man. He was in a catastrophic motorcycle accident. And he said he felt them pull his soul out of his body, and he meets with them and he's looking at these entities, and these entities tell him, your body's dying. You do not have the technology to fix it. We'll fix it for you if you become our prophet.
Wow.
So here's the real thing. He decided to be their prophet, and so they allowed him to live. But how many people are missing right now? How many people have lived and died because they did not want, right, to be controlled by these entities? I don't know, I'm rambling, but
no, you're fine. Keep going, because this is all new to me.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's really where I'm at right now. Trying to understand, are they operating in technology? We know for sure that they've eclipsed all known demonologies. I had a client of mine. I guess I should call. I don't know if I should call him a client or not. Anyways, but he reached out to me about his father, who is he's deceased now, but he was a famous remote viewer. And his father was famous in his local city for going into trances and then meeting his guides and then being placed back into his body. Then he would go and give them, messages. Well, one day he said that his father came stumbling down the stairs. He was white as a ghost, and he was inconsolable. He ended up having a massive heart attack and almost dying. But as they begin to take his robe or take his shirt off at the hospital, they witnessed through the skin religious amulets, the Star of David, a cross, and Egyptian hieroglyphics begin to emerge from underneath the skin to the surface. Now, this is what's fascinating. In all of our demonologies, we're so exclusive, right? You do not have, like your Jewish demonology, you won't have a Jewish rabbi going in and dealing with the demon by using a cross, right? They would use the Star of David, vice versa. A Catholic priest would never use the Star of David. He would use the cross. And so what's happened in the field of demonology is that we have become so exclusive. We fail to realize that these entities do not think like that. So the amulets that they placed on this man were universal. They were interreligious and cross-cultural. So whereas demonology is we've got a corner on this phenomenon. We know what they are. They're everywhere. They've eclipsed that microcosm. So what I'm trying to understand now is, okay, what are these entities? You know what I mean? And not just, okay, we do know they're pulling souls out of the body. We do know they're trying to inseminate women, and they're doing that by, taking the image of a man they've been with. So, what's really going on here? That's really where I'm at.
Right. Now, with your demonology, do you do exorcisms at all?
I have, but I have a different tradition. A lot of my other demonologist friends, when they perform an exorcism, they use holy water. I do what's called a Kabbalistic tradition, where it comes from a guy named Isaac Luria, where it's a little bit different. It's not, it's not the rite of provocation and all that stuff, even though I believe in that. Sometimes what I do is I will talk to the entity itself. Many times I've called it by name, especially I had one case where a young lady was dealing with an attachment of suicide. And so I began to talk to that entity, just like they did in the 16th century. Talk to that entity and begin to give that individual's autonomy back to her. And it's a little bit different, but it's really interesting. It comes in the context of believing that the entities that are possessing people are not horns and hooves, but are in fact, many of them are in fact people who've lived and died and who are stepping into people. And with that said, I think it's worth mentioning that in the Bible, the exorcistic rite comes out of Numbers chapter 19 and 11, and it was designed to cure someone from what's called corpse pollution. So that's why when I start getting into different demonologies, are you a systematic demonologist, all this, I think it's worth suggesting again that we're dealing with consciousness most of the time, people, right, who have their own memories and their own belief systems. So, to answer your question, I performed exorcisms, but it's not the Catholic rite.
Okay. Trying to read my chicken scribbles here. All right, let's go back to the whole alien thing. Now,
okay.
People say they have sightings of them and things like that. Is that how they really get here, from like some kind of spaceship?
Oh my God.
Or what
We don't know. Yeah. Okay, I'm not one that subscribes to the ET hypothesis.
Yeah.
I think that's just a mask that these entities wear. Now, what we do have evidence of is them being interdimensional, where they can go in and out of existence right before your eyes. Like we have UFO accounts where people will watch as a material ship, like an actual ship, will materialize right in front of them and fly off. So we do have evidence that that these are interdimensional in the sense that it's like going in, leaving one room and going into the next. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I do believe that that the evidence suggests they're interdimensional. But I mean, we have evidence like from Skinwalker Ranch, where they've actually filmed, according to Bigelow and call her whatever, that they've actually filmed these ships coming through portals, where like a literal portal will open up and then one of these UFOs will fly out.
Wow.
Yeah, whatever they are, they're incredibly, incredibly advanced. It's unbelievable.
Yes, yeah, and intelligent, it seems like. Beyond us.
Yeah, we got people eating Tide Pods. They're a little bit more evolved, It's just very interesting to me. I mean, like I'm starting to get into what's called the Collins Elite, and the Collins Elite is it was a group of people that were in the government, the federal government, that were being financed, and what they were trying to do was make a connection between these entities and demonology and the occult, really. And so, if you go back into a lot of these ritual warlocks, I should say that, but like sorcerers in antiquity, and even after that, like Edward Kelly, for instance. Edward Kelly performed a ritual and pulled one of these ships out of the air. It materialized right in front of him. And he said, according to his journal, he said that there were men inside the ship looking at him.
Oh, wow.
So there is an occult connection to this phenomenon, and it's not just limited to, nuts and bolts and stuff like that. Yeah, but that's where I'm at. It's very deep stuff, very troubling too, once we get into the data.
Oh, yeah, this, like I said, this is all new to me, so I'm very just trying to soak it all in right now, and I'm writing down. We have some questions coming in through chat, so
okay.
There's a question here. They want to know, do you think our doubles are aliens?
I don't know. I know that in the Apocrypha of John, it's an ancient manuscript preserved by Egyptian Christian monks. They talked about these entities that would go in at nighttime and, appear to the woman in the image of a lover or her husband. And it said that they created copies of bodies, copies of the same body. And according to my research, I do believe that is a reference to immortality. Now, this is very important. I need everybody to listen very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of possession throughout history was not the relocation of consciousness in a body, but it was the replication of life. Now, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what we have now is evidence going like in Ian Stevenson's work, where people who claim to have past lives look like their past body. Oh, this is getting good, guys. Okay, so we have an individual who says, "This is who I used to be. This is my name. This is how I died. This is my age that I died.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I look like." And then they go back into the history and they pull a picture out,
Right.
and it looks identical to the body that they're inhabiting today. So what am I saying? I believe that much of this UFO abduction phenomenon is about the replication
Mm-hmm.
of life and placing consciousness into new bodies. But that goes back to your question about, do you believe our doubles are us and whatnot? I don't know. I do know we have evidence, at least with afterlife or past life regressions,
Mm-hmm.
that these people exist, and our doubles, it's almost like when we died in that body,
Mm-hmm.
we were placed in a new body, and those bodies look alike.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know why, though. It's very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Let's see here. He has another. He wants to know, since you were just kind of mentioned past life,
Mm-hmm.
he wants to know what your past life was.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I really don't know. I don't know. I know that. I don't know. I would hope that I was a demonologist or some rich billionaire in the past, right?
Yeah.
So I'm halfway there right now. I'm at least a demonologist, but I don't know, honestly. I've never had a past life regression done.
Uh-huh.
But I think that the evidence suggests that it is real.
Mm-hmm.
That there are people that genuinely lived and died, and now they're in a new body.
Right. Yeah. It was kind of interesting because we did have a guest on a couple of weeks ago who.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of just did a little bit with me, and he told me that I was actually a doctor that lived in Philadelphia, and
Mm-hmm.
I had a wife named Evelyn, and I died in 1948, which I thought was kind of interesting. I've never done like a past life thing or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a doctor, but I am in the health profession. But
that is interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting because I'm still in the health profession, just not a doctor. I work in the more dental field. So.
And we have history of that too. Like in the cases of Ian Stevenson's work,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these people were in the same professions they were in their past life. And so I think that as a researcher, the most fascinating aspect of that is who is orchestrating this. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's
exactly.
not an accident, that you're in the same profession you were in a past life.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like I said, but anyways, yeah. So I think all of this is interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really where I'm at. I think the modern UFO abduction phenomenon was interpreted in antiquity as demonic.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm always asked, okay, do I believe these entities are demons? I don't believe that they're demons in the classical sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that when we start asking the question, okay, are they fallen angels? I think we have to determine and define what a fallen angel is.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do that real quick.
Okay, sure.
The term in Hebrew, fallen angel, let me back up and say this. The term for angel in Hebrew is malakim.
Mm-hmm.
It was a retranslated version of a Ugaritic word, malakuma. And malakuma meant deceased ancestor.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're dealing, okay, so if people are asking, are these fallen angels, I need to clarify that. Are we really asking a different question? Are we really asking if these entities are ghosts?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Now, if they are, this would make a lot more sense than some kind of Greek mythological text, But if we're really dealing with spirits,
Mm-hmm.
it would make a lot more sense as to why people who are abducted many times go home into a haunted house out of nowhere. Their
Right.
house is immediately haunted. So I believe that's another connectivity that connects this phenomenon. So I want to go that direction really quick too, because
Sure.
we have cases where during hauntings, like I had one case, a lady reached out to me about her daughter. They were attacked in their home, and the entities that scratched the little girl, they scratched her underneath her skin, And just like I told you guys earlier about the remote viewer where they gave them amulets, but the amulets were subdermal and they pushed themselves through the skin. It was the same phenomenon with this little girl where she immediately felt something burning, and then she looked down and the scratches were subdermal and pushed themselves to the surface. So whatever is happening in the ufology field and even in hauntology, they're connected. I believe we're dealing with the same entities that are just wearing different masks and really hoping that we don't realize that they're the same creatures here.
That is a new take on that. It is. Like you don't ever think of that. You just think, okay, there's different things. There's, you've got your Bigfoots, you've got your aliens, you've got your spirits, you've got your demons. But how?
Oh yeah.
But they all have to. I mean, they're probably all connected somehow because you have Bigfoot here. Everybody says they've seen Bigfoot, but where does it go when you don't? You never
Correct.
catch him on anything. So.
Correct. And yeah, I believe he's interdimensional too. I don't, I mean, it's hard for that kind of a creature to hide like it is.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yes, I mean, we have a lot of data that suggests that these two phenomena are interconnected intimately, really. And the issue is, I think that as a field of researchers, if we really put all of those eggs in the same basket and started investigating both fields of research and say, okay, instead of compartmentalizing them, ask some very real questions. Why do these creatures behave like a ghost does? How is it that they can walk through a wall like a ghost does and then materialize to the touch like a ghost does, right? So there's a lot of their characteristics that mirror each other, and I think that as a field of research, it would be advantageous for us to at least perceive it as such.
Excuse me. Oh, got a couple more questions here in chat.
Okay.
There was one, they want to know what has been the weirdest alien encounter that you've heard of.
Oh my God. I did a lecture. Okay, this is a little bit, it is an alien encounter because this was an abductee. I'm just going to suggest I would say that. But I did a lecture on the incubus 2 or 3 years ago. At the very end of it, I guess there was an abductee there and I didn't know it. He was listening to the lecture. He's like, I got to tell you my story. And he's like, I need to tell you what happened and see what you have to say about it. I said, okay. He said that me and my wife, he said that we're abductees. We were both abducted prior to actually meeting each other and getting married. He said, but he said one night, he said, we're in bed. We're both asleep. And he said, I felt something begin to move underneath the blanket. He said, at first blush, I thought it was my wife moving her legs. Maybe she was having a nightmare or restless leg syndrome. He didn't know what to make of it until he looked. And once his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he said it looked like a little kid was underneath the covers standing up.
Oh.
Yeah. He said that, so he pulled the covers back. And he said, Nathaniel, it was a little girl. She may have been about 5 or 6 years old, pale in complexion. And he said that she looked like she was dead. He said, I didn't know what to do. He said, I woke my wife up. My wife's freaking out. And he said, the only thing I could think of was that I'm losing my mind or this is a nightmare. He said, so I went to go grab her. And when I did, he said, she was physical enough for me to grab. And when I touched her, she looked at me and said, I'm dead. My brother's dead too. He's over there in the corner of the room. And when she said that, he looked over and in the shadows was this little boy just staring at him.
Oh my gosh.
This is creepy. Very creepy.
Yeah.
And he said, she said, my brother's dead, but he doesn't know he is. I know I'm dead. And he said, so I'm holding this little girl and all of a sudden she just dematerializes. She's gone. Like a smoke, like a vapor. And so at first I thought this was like a ghost story. Oh my God, it's a ghost. He said, no. He said, but I'm confident I've seen that little girl in an abduction that I was a part of.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's kind of a ghost / abduction story. But, a lot of these abduction accounts are terrifying. Like there was one abductee who said that Jesus came to her held his hand out and said, "All souls belong to me."
Oh my gosh.
And watch this, including your children.
Oh.
Yep. So what? I don't know what's going on here with the phenomenon, but
Right.
it's almost as if, again, that we're dealing with entities that will hide behind religious figures. They'll hide behind anything as long as we don't really understand what's going on.
Yeah. See, to me, if I were to see a little girl in my bed like that, or in my room, or something like that, I would think that it was a spirit.
Right. Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, it's also an interesting connection here. We have cases where abductees, it's almost like an out-of-body near-death experience, where they're in a ship or they're out in a field like Whitley Strieber was, and they see a deceased loved one with these entities.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like with the Collins Elite's research combined with mine, I do believe these entities are out of body. They may possess a body like they do with Greys, but I do believe we're dealing with a form of consciousness, and that they exist in a dimension that we would call the afterlife.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many species of aliens do you think there are?
I don't know. If aliens did exist, billions maybe. I mean, the universe is huge. It's a lot of empty space out there.
Right. Yeah. I was just wondering, because you hear about the Greys and things like that, but I just didn't know if there was any other.
Well, so a lot of times we try to put a face to the phenomenon.
Right.
And there was one account that I read that was horrific because it calls into question everything we think we know about what we're seeing them to be. He was an abductee, and this entity looked like a Grey until he turned sideways. And when that Grey being turned sideways, it was like the frequency was broken, and he could actually see that the Grey image that this entity was projecting was not at all who it was.
Wow.
So that's terrifying. The implications are, at least.
Oh yeah. Excuse me. Let's see here. We got another question that's popping in here.
Okay.
Oops, I just pulled my headphones right out of my ears. Oh, okay. So this one kind of goes back to exorcisms. They want to know, have you ever stopped an exorcism in the middle of doing one? And if so, was there any repercussions for doing that?
No, I've never stopped one. And I know, I've heard of people doing that, and not even like people that were performing an unsuccessful exorcism. That comes from Malachi Martin's teachings, where that entity will haunt you and possibly try to kill you. But I've never had that happen to me. But these exorcisms that I've performed have been very rare. Like, this person has to be possessed or has to have an attachment. And I want to make sure that's the case before I show up, because a lot of these people, they don't pay me. I have to go out of my way. I have to take my time, put my gas money into my take. Right. So they're very rare.
Excuse me. All right, let's see here. I know there was another one in here. I'm trying to keep up. Sometimes they spit them out so fast I can't write them down that fast.
It's all good. I have ADHD, so sometimes my brain's faster than my mouth, and so I start stuttering.
Oh, that's okay. Yep, I know.
It's like, some people, it's bad.
Oh, I think she found it. Oh, okay. Yep, here we go. How well do aliens mix with spirits, or can they not mix?
I don't know. I think they're one and the same, I believe. Again, I don't believe the ET hypothesis stands up to scrutiny, because, we have abductees that tell us the same entities live in different places. Right. And, you know what I mean? They always tell us different stories. They tell us different reasons why they abduct us. They give us different names. Truthfully, I agree with Jacques Vallée in the sense that if they are interdimensional, then we need to start treating them as spirits more so than we would as some extraterrestrial that came out of the crevice of, a Mars rock or something. But that's what I'm saying, guys. I think that we treat these entities as spirits and we start realizing it's the same phenomenon, then we have maybe more answers than we think we are really there.
Now, what are your thoughts on, I know this one is fairly talked about Indrid
Mhm.
Cold?
I don't know. I know that, like John Keel said, John Keel, he would leave his, I think it was a New York City apartment,
Mm-hmm.
and then he would go to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, do some research, and not tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
By the time he got back to his New York apartment, he has a message from this Indrid Cold
Mm-hmm.
talking to him. So whatever this entity is,
Mm-hmm.
and I do believe it was an entity, which I know that's ambiguous as it gets, but hey,
Yeah.
at least I'm admitting it, he existed. But
Yeah.
whatever this entity was, he had foreknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
He could see into the future. He was also giving Keel prophecies that were occurring.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he was a real being that had some serious foreknowledge, and really he knew everything Keel was doing, even though Keel wasn't even telling people.
Mm-hmm.
That entity could tell him, okay, I know where you've been, I know what you did, I know what you're researching, which is terrifying.
Right. And then you have the Men in Black.
Yeah.
What are your
The men
thoughts
in,
on that?
oh my God. Well, I don't think they're human.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I
Yeah.
don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because we have cases where abductees are abducted at the middle of the night. They wake up at 7 in the morning to a knock on their door, where these individuals want to know, what was your abduction like? Well, first
Right.
of all, I never told anybody I was abducted.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like these entities are tipping their hand in the fact that they know things they shouldn't know,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right. Yep.
And so like I'm one of the researchers along with Nick Redfern that question, okay, what's your real purpose? It's not to ask me questions about my abduction.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like to shut us up, to put fear into us.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, Nick Redfern in his case study suggests that these entities, especially the Men in Black, will feed off of your fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He has a lot. He does a lot of good work on the Men in Black, but that's my perception
Mm-hmm.
on those beings. We're dealing with entities that it's almost like the replicas of life,
Right.
because a lot of these Men in Black have lipstick on. They didn't know how to eat Jello.
Mm-hmm.
Some weird things going on with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I've read about them. I've watched some documentaries on those, and it's just very, very interesting to
Mm-hmm.
and same with the Indrid Cold, and there was a lot of skepticism of like, is he still around
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that? Who knows? But
Who knows? But it's connected, because when John Keel was investigating that fallen bridge in Point Pleasant, during that period of time, he's going out there, and he was a demonologist. People don't realize that John Keel identified as a demonologist. But John Keel's out there researching, taking personal testimonies from people who are seeing UFOs. And then prior to the actual bridge falling, people were coming out and telling John Keel that they saw Men in Black
mm-hmm.
near it, crawling on top of the bridge and inspecting it prior to it falling. So this actually points to at least some of these Men in Black to be almost like the Adjustment Bureau,
Mm-hmm.
right? They can
Right.
bounce in and out of our reality while they're working on something behind the scenes.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Okay, so there's a couple more questions here in chat.
Okay.
Let's see here. Darren would like to know, what's been your favorite experiment you have tried, and what do you want to try?
Um, I haven't really done much experiments.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there was a time when this young lady had an attachment, and I began to talk to that entity, and as if I was talking to her, but I was talking to it. And so what I started doing was pulling out emotions, like saying, okay, I know you feel this way. You feel A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
And the young lady thought I was talking to her, but I was really talking to that entity.
Oh, uh-huh.
Right. And so that's one of the Kabbalistic exorcisms where if you want to heal the person, you have to heal the spirit in them. That was an interesting experiment, because once I got that entity out,
Mm-hmm.
it allowed that individual to have her autonomy back. See, a lot of these entities, again, when they attach you, they're an exterior entity.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will, it's like the Dybbuk in the Jewish mythology, it'll lay on you, literally lay on you.
Mm-hmm.
And its emotions become yours, its thoughts become yours. And then and that's how possession begins, where it'll be thinking in you and for you, but you will not know the difference between your thoughts and its thoughts. And so that was one of my experiments dealing with that attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And then it healed her. Like since then, all of her relationships were restored. It was a really beautiful moment.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, so Darren has another question he popped in with. This comes back to the exorcisms. He wants to know how many exorcisms can one have till it's determined that they need to be put in a mental hospital?
Well, I think that if we're talking about the Catholic rite, anytime they perform an exorcism, they have to go through the psychological aspect of it. So they actually check these individuals out, and they go through the psycho workup and everything, and then they figure out, okay, is this person actually have an entity in them, or is this, schizophrenia? So I think that happens on the front end and not the back end. But it's pretty easy to tell if someone's actually possessed because they have knowledge about things they shouldn't. A lot of times, especially if you've committed sin in the past or recently, it'll call your sin out to you, to your face. There's one researcher he was in seminary, and I'm not going to mention his name because you probably know him, but he was being a part of an exorcism when the entity looked at it and spoke in pure Malay. And it's a dead language. And he said, I was there when your father killed himself. I was the one that made him do it.
Oh, wow.
So at that point, it's possession.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow.
What a chump, though. What a chump. Let's say that to somebody. That's awful.
Yeah. That's terrible. Oh, okay. So Darren's got another question. He's on a roll here.
Okay.
Do you think exorcisms are experimental, or is that a big no-no? Because it could damage or kill a person.
I think that it depends on which tradition. I mean, I think that's a loaded question. Is it systematic demonology? Is it a Catholic exorcism, or is it Kabbalistic? Because I think that, like in the 16th century, while the Catholics were solidifying, whether or not they believed in Satan, and they're revamping their demonology, we have Kabbalistic exorcists who are going out and actually healing people and delivering them by talking to the entity. So I wouldn't say that I'm experimenting or that people are experimenting. I just think that they're implementing different practices and traditions.
Yeah, and I think everybody does an exorcism differently.
Right. Now, Malachi Martin's, his ritual was different than us. I mean, even amongst Catholic exorcists, they all do things differently. I mean, obviously they have the same handbook, but they have different giftings and different ways of handling these entities.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So before we start to wrap things up, I know you have a couple books out. You have A Moment Called Man, and then you have The Skin That Crawls. Can you tell us a little bit about those? Give us a little bit of background on those?
Yeah, so I had, a few years back, I lost a friend to addiction, and he was an empath. And so I wrote A Moment Called Man in his honor, and I talk about how a lot of people will medicate the gift they're called to manifest. And so I deal with the empathic nature and, growing into your gifts. And a lot of people, that's really what I'm dealing with in that book. My second book is The Skin That Crawls, and I go through the history of possession, how possession is pregnancy in many ways. And I kind of relate all of that to the UFO abduction phenomenon. It's really interesting. I mean, it's scary as heck, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. I saw those in there, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get them so I can read them. I'm growing quite the book collection here lately, so.
Good. I just got a couple myself, man. That's all it's about, man. I like it.
That's right. Okay, so where can people follow you, find out what you're up to, any new books, or where they can buy your books?
Yeah. So you can follow me on my social media accounts. I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, and I'm working on, getting a lot of subscribers on that. I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Nathaniel J. Gillis. That's where I update everybody about my research. So that's how to connect with me. You guys can send me a message or something, and, we can talk and learn together.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And then your YouTube, is it under your name as well, or is it under something? Okay.
It's Nathaniel Gillis.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Not Nathaniel Giles.
I don't know how you get that out of that, but
it's like, and then I did a show where, out of nowhere, the guy just starts calling me Neil. Where the heck that come from, dude?
He's giving
What
you
are
a
you?
nickname, I guess. I don't know.
It's just, yeah, forget why even give you a name. Like, just call me whatever you want at this point.
That's right. All right. So, I'd like to give quick shout outs to everyone who was in chat here. We had Allison, Kim, Matt, we had Allie, we had Darren, and then we have somebody up there. I'm not sure who their name is. That's in the what is that Japanese kind of anime type character looking up there. Thank you for joining us in chat. Thank you for everybody who was not in chat but listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. We'd like to thank our awesome guest tonight. You have blown my mind with so much stuff that I can't even comprehend it all right now.
Good. That's what it's about.
Nathaniel Gillis, thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you. Make sure you guys all go check him out on his YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We will post this information on our social media as well. So if you miss it in the show, you know where to find us, and so you can find it on our social media. Thank you once again. It was a blast talking to you.
For sure. I hope to come back and we'll talk more about this stuff. It's been a blast, guys. You guys were amazing.
Absolutely. Yes, I loved every minute of it. We'll have to have you on back for sure.
For sure. All right, guys. You guys take care.
Thank you for listening to REP Paranormal and Friends. Be sure to check out Kim and Allison on Facebook at REP Paranormal Busters.